Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Righteous Force, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Any signs of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Not from Tampa Bay, Florida.
Signs of
We do not see the geometric horizon.
We do not see the geometric horizon. Hey, Arwin.
Hey, hello. Where have you been?
It was bank holiday yesterday, so about 1 o'clock I decided that I was going to play with my kids and spend some time with my wife, because everyone else was on holiday. My wife wasn't at work, so I thought, well, I've got a spare show. One of the members only ones I released yesterday at 1. So why not? Everyone else was on holiday. Was it not a national holiday in your country?
Yes, you became an American yesterday.
I went to the store, so I don't think so.
I don't know about stores being closed, but certainly we call it a bank holiday.
Okay, well, I didn't check if the banks were closed. I think the ATM machines were still functioning. Or is it just the name?
Just the banks close on a bank holiday. And, you know, some major businesses might close, but on the whole, if it's in any way retail-based, they stay open and you get paid extra if you're a worker. Anyway, fun though it is to discuss the national holiday system here in England. Any signs of axial rotation?
Not of the Earth-based variety.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over there.
Where?
Over there.
In that direction.
Did not come up where you are.
Sorry?
I was talking to Neil. Does it not come up where you are, Neil?
Yeah, it's over here. I'm pointing to the left.
Well, if they don't have a geometric horizon matched to their radius, isn't that how they measured the distance at one time, Nathan?
Yeah. What, with that Earth curve calculator?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if the radius is wrong, how's their measurement how far the sun is could be right anymore?
Oh, everything falls apart. Any evidence of the R value while we're on the subject?
Black
They
Swan.
surrender all.
I had this weird conversation in the back panel when we weren't recording again. And yeah, they just can't handle it. They just keep on saying, but it's there. This is how you measure it. You measure the total distance you move over the Earth, and then you assume it can only be like that on a ball. I know he really thought he had the argument there.
Yeah, that's so 2019 though, isn't it? Let's be honest.
They can't handle it. I even tried to explain to him, like, okay, well, certain circumstances, depending on certain presuppositions, and he really thought he got me after that point. But I explained, no, not really. Yeah, you could definitely go in a straight line and end up at the exact same spot. there was a looping nature somewhere. And I tried to explain that to him, but then he just started about nonsense with Earth spin and like, how does the Earth spin work with looping? And it just,
You're only talking about the sun, though, when you describe it in that manner, right?
sorry, again?
You're only talking about the sun. We're on the sun. We're talking about the sun, right? How far is the sun? What's the distance to it? And when you talk about looping, I don't want to get too heavily into this, Arwin. I'm just asking as a cursory question. You're talking specifically about the sun, though, aren't you?
No. There is no looping to the sun going on, because looping is like a spatial consequence effect of the realm, if it would exist under certain conditions, certain presuppositions, right? But the sun itself is non-local as far as I'm concerned, so it's not affected. It's just a visual apparition, and location or the looping of space somewhere has no relation to it whatsoever. It's just light coming from that direction in that location.
Fair enough. I don't know if I'm not supposed to spill these beans or not, but this morning before the show started, I got called by Dr. John D, one of the ballbusters. Very excited he was as well, to share with me his latest Black Swan that he caught yesterday. A whole series of Black Swans in actuality. And he showed me with the buoy, which we're familiar with. If you've seen my re-up of his video, check it out. PhD in spectroscopy destroys the globe, or words to that effect. I can't remember the exact title name. In any event, he went out, got another observation that is, in my humble opinion, with the exception of the original, which is always going to be the best because it's the original Black Swan image, not the argument, for the namesake of the image. We called that first picture of the oil platforms the Black Swan. Now, the argument is obviously the Karl Popper argument, but the tag that picture got was the Black Swan. And subsequently, any further images to that have been called Black Swan images, for obvious reasons. Now, this latest Black Swan from Dr. John D, in my humble opinion, is the best one to date. So he's got a new one. He went out to catch the buoy. He's repeating what he's done before, but he caught something new, which was better. I'm not going to spill too many beans because it's not been released yet. He showed me while he was in the process of making a presentation video, which will come out. It might be in a week for all I know, so I don't want to ruin it too much for his audience members. Hopefully I'll be able to mirror it if it's done in a similar presentation style to the last video did, and I'll be very excited to do so and share it with you all, because after he'd shown me, I was like him. I was like, wow, this is so exciting. This is really cool. So without building it up too much, be on the lookout for Dr. John D's latest release. It's got Black Swans in it, a whole series of them. Again, without giving too much away, check it out when it comes out. But that'll be hopefully in the next week. I don't know how long it actually takes him to gather up somebody to do the voiceover work and actually produce the videos. I didn't ask that question. Also, I didn't ask if I shouldn't be mentioning this, so easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, it seems. So I'll shout out Godzilla and then we'll carry on with housekeeping. So massive shout out to Godzilla for hitting the super chat. He says... And Al Junkie as well, but I'll get to you in a second. Looping is what the Globers in this chat do. Their arguments get wrecked every day, and the next day they come back in to do it again. Indeed, Godzilla. Right on. Also, shout out to...
Hey, Nathan. Oh,
hello.
go finish.
Hello, whoever that was.
That's
No,
fine.
that was me. But go ahead, finish your super chat.
If I may, respond to that. Yeah, a loop is technically a circle. It's just not a... It's a circle within space, not a geometrical circle.
Okie
What
dokie.
space?
Shout out to Al Jungi, who says, new globe alphabet needed. ABC equals PQRSTUVWXYZ. New globe alphabet needed. ABC, etc. I don't understand it. Do you understand that? Anybody? Thank you for the super chat anyway, Al Junkie. Really appreciate your support. Don't understand the context, sorry. New globe alphabet required. Okay.
There's no R.
You.
Oh, no R! P, of course. It's because I'm reading it about 2 meters distance and my eyesight's just not good enough. New globe alphabet needed. ABC, etc. P, Q, S, T, U, V. Gotcha. No R. Gotcha. Good job I had somebody to explain it to me. Thank you very much for the super chat, Al Junkie. Really appreciate it. Any scientific evidence of gravity? Hey, Paul.
No scientific evidence of gravity, but I'd like to comment on Dr. John D for a second.
Yeah.
when the Black Swan came out, we all agreed that because now that we had the horizon where it's supposed to be not be there, that there was going to surface many pictures, videos from the past, even that because we didn't know what we were looking for, because we're looking for things being obstructed from the bottom up and explaining it as perspective, etc. But all the time, the horizon is, way past the thing that's disappearing and it should be before. And we said at that time, and that was in January, that in the future, very soon, there'll be so many black swans coming because we know what to look for. And I just remembered it when you said Dr. John D found something really nice.
Yeah, you're right. And I always get the L and the M the wrong way around. BMLSB69 has gone through his archives and done exactly that. Again, a lot of the videos that he received a lot of hate on are the ones that have got black swans in, just by coincidence. The ones with the most thumbs down. Yeah, he's gone back to his stuff that he's republished. He's published, in some cases several years ago, and qualified it with what we should or shouldn't see using their vernacular based on the presupposition of us being on a sphere. And it was a strange conversation with Dr. John D today, because although I did ask him some questions about how it runs through the mathematics of the globe assumption, it wasn't the focus of the conversation, because it wasn't really relevant. Obviously, in what he's showing me, I'm not giving anything away by saying the horizon was way beyond where it would be claimed, past tense, would have been claimed, that the geometric horizon was situated. Now that's no longer the case. We do not see a geometric horizon. So, the whole conversation was just very different in terms of how it would have been if we'd have had the same conversation 12 months ago. So you're not looking at the thing that has optical effects happening at the bottom of it anymore, because the claim that is in opposition to that from the globe side is that the effects that you're seeing at the very limited angle are caused by Earth curve. Well, if you've got the geometric horizon claimed to no longer be visible, and the horizon that is visible is way beyond whatever's being obstructed, clearly the obstruction is not Earth curve. So the conversation can't really sway down that road anymore, which is why it's such a beautiful argument. As soon as you start to sway down the globe route, you've got to go into fantasy worlds of moving geometric horizons into refracted positions, no longer having physical visible geometric horizons, two horizons, bent tangent lines. The whole thing becomes a complete farce as soon as you even try and beg the question.
Well, I had a 40-minute conversation with Chaiki yesterday, and the after panel, I recorded for members only video, but I'll tell you about it at least. He actually went as far as to double down on claiming that on a flat Earth, you would have no horizon. He really said that.
Yeah, the perspective denial is, again, a very 2019 affliction for the globe heads. Feel free to deny perspective. As I say, the conversation between myself and Dr. John D didn't go down that road. It hinted at it because it's an old argument that may come up, but it wasn't the path of the conversation, because it isn't relevant. Are we trying to explain why whatever it is we're looking at might be slightly compressed? When it's in the middle ground, it's not in the distance, the horizon's in the distance. So who cares? It's no longer relevant to argue about what's happening in the middle foreground, because it's not obscured by Earth curve.
According to Soundly, they said because we're assuming it's a perfect sphere.
It doesn't matter. If you've got a horizon that's kilometres or miles and miles away from whatever it is that you're looking at, and then you can see whatever optical effect you want to call it, compression, loom, it doesn't matter, because it's before the horizon. So it makes no difference. So the sphere can't grow. The R value and how it's calculated for what will reposition their second horizon is all based on R. You need the first horizon for everything they do. You need a geometric horizon. It's how it's qualified. It's how it's defined in all the dictionaries. The geometric horizon is supposed to be our visible horizon. The fact that it's denied in the trenches and claimed that we don't see one is just a concession that we don't live on a globe by the opposing side in the trenches. Now, does it change the fact that if you go and look up what the definition of a horizon is, it'll give it you in geometric Earth curve terms? Because that's what we're supposed to see. We're supposed to see an Earth curve edge for a horizon. We just don't have one.
Nathan, I've picked up on something, and it dovetails to what Arwen said, that guy said. And you've covered it many times. And most flat earthers have to deal with it every single time they talk to a baller. And that's, they, for some reason, think that on a plane, like a flat earth type of thing, that you should be able to see forever. Like you can see New York from England or something. It's the most ridiculous statement that they come up, as if we ever said those words out of our mouths. But it's them saying it to, it's almost like a trick to say that so that you don't deal with the subject. But
It's
they
just
forget
nonsense.
about diffraction limit and angular resolution.
These things are listed when you buy your camera in the handbook. You need to know the angular resolution of your camera. You can calculate it yourself with the Rayleigh criterion. It's based on the aperture size. That's what's giving you your angular resolution, the size of the hole the light's travelling through. The bigger the hole, the better the angular resolution. As I say, you can calculate it with the Rayleigh criterion. Well, the point that things disappear, reach the diffraction limit, is real. Perspective's real. What do you want? To deny it? Okay, well, that's just you denying a fundamental principle of our reality because you've got a globe belief. Okay, go on your way. Yeah, okay, perspective's not real. It's all Earth curving when the horizon's behind the thing that's obscured. So what's obscuring this thing in the middle foreground? Obviously, we're not going to argue about whether or not it's Earth curve, because that would be way off in the distance, wouldn't it, now, if the horizon was a physical edge to a sphere? So we're not going to argue about that. But clearly there's an effect going on, isn't there, in the middle foreground, not in the background. So, yeah, we can still definitely qualify things getting too small to see, because things in the middle foreground gets too small to see as well. It's not everything disappearing behind Earth curve, because perspective is real. We move on. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Nope.
Nope.
None whatsoever.
What's gravity?
An effect.
Yeah, I don't care. As long as I get scientific evidence for it, Paul, you always get it in the neck.
You keep claiming weight.
Weight's intrinsically attached to a downward vector, which they can ascribe gravity to in Newtonian terms. However, gravity isn't being effective, shall we say, when it comes to things that aren't going down, of which there are plenty. We can detail them now if you wish, or we can move on in housekeeping, Neil. Which would you prefer?
Up force.
Move on.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
You mean guesswork?
No. Viable hypothesis.
No, I know, but they're going to give us guesswork.
Has Dr. Becky contacted you yet,
Dr.
man?
Becky.
You know, as much as Dr. Becky sits in front of that computer and reads email, you would think she would have contacted me, but no, she hasn't.
I have something on that.
Go ahead.
If natural law is completely independent of human understanding, that means Kepler's third law and the law of gravity can't.
Why is that?
You cut off at the end. Sorry.
I
Say
said,
again, John, just the last bit.
If natural law is, well, they can't be laws if they're, dependent upon, understanding that we live on a.
I see. Yeah, they need R for all that stuff, correct. They also need to assume Venus has the same R value as Earth. So given that we've debunked Earth's R value, the assumption of Venus's R value is not going to get you very far either. And Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion is going to depend on their assumptions, which we've debunked. As I say, the entire model falls apart at this stage because R's been killed. The R value, Earth radius, is dead. Therefore, the geometric Earth curve model, a sphere Earth, is also dead.
Well, there's also a problem with Kepler's third law too. I mean, there has to be some kind of solid objects or bodies. So what's the evidence that these bodies that we see in the sky, these lights in the sky, are physical bodies?
Well, some of them they claim are rocks, some of them they claim are gaseous in a vacuum, violating the second law.
Oh, Nathan, I got a good one for you. Sean Hawkins in chat says the existence of Neptune was discovered with a hypothesis.
A hypothesis doesn't discover or explain anything. So a hypothesis is an abstraction, if you will. It's a supposition. So a hypothesis doesn't give you anything until you actualize it. So the actualization of a hypothesis, anyone know what that's called?
Experiment.
Right, an experiment where you empirically validate or invalidate, that's why it's an empirical method, your presumed cause of the effect that you've observed. That's a hypothesis. Your supposition of the presumed cause of the effect that you observed. And then when you say, let's see if it actually causes the effect, and then you vary it to see if it causes it, that was the actualization of your hypothesis. So a hypothesis alone is useless.
Leave it to a baller to think a hypothesis is something that it isn't.
Well, they've got just so stories. So by comparison, in scientific vernacular, you could compare, loosely, a just so story with a supposition. I suppose that pouring acid into the water will make it boil. So, hello, Mr. Stranger. You know what causes water to boil? Acid content. That's my just so story now, isn't it? It went from being a presumed cause of the effect yet to be validated to my just so story because I've just used a hypothesis to explain something. Well, it doesn't explain anything. A hypothesis on its own is a supposition.
Well, now, isn't a hypothesis without experiment pretty much an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy?
If it's not actualized and you then take it and turn it into a just so story, if this then that therefore this. So if acid then boiling water, here's some boiling water, it must have acid content. Yeah, you could turn it into an affirming the consequent very easily, and that's generally speaking the nature of their just so stories. But yeah, a hypothesis is an experiment yet to be actualised. So it's useless on its own. Anyway, shout out to Al Junkie, who says, zoos do better research than ballers. Hashtag hypothesis. Very good, Al Junkie. Thank you very much.
Hypothesis.
He's in a funny mood, Al Junkie, today, but I like it. He's paying me to be in his funny mood, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you for the super chat, Al Junkie. Really appreciate your support.
Nathan,
go on.
A synonym for hypothesis is theory.
Well, that's wrong also in scientific vernacular. Scientific theory comes after the actualization of a hypothesis. So you have your hypothesis, your supposition, then you actualize it, and if validated, because obviously you might get it wrong, your presumed cause might not cause the effect. So my supposition of acid causing boiling water, well, you go and pour a load of acid into the water, it doesn't boil, and you go, oh, well, that's not the cause then. So you've empirically invalidated your hypothesis. You've proven that it's not acid content that causes water to boil. You've invalidated your supposition. But after you've validated it, maybe heat causes it. Heat causes water to boil. Yeah, let's try that. You heat up the water, it boils. Hey, presume cause of the effect validated. You can then move on to your water boiling theory. But not before you've got a validated experiment.
Well, let me just read an excerpt here. In non-scientific use, however, hypothesis and theory are often used interchangeably to mean simply an idea, speculation, or hunch, with theory being the more common choice.
Oh, in non-science, in colloquial terms. Oh, I've got a theory about how water boils. You pour acid in. That's my theory. Go forth and tell people about acid content. Because that's my theory. Oh, didn't I mention theory in colloquial terms? As in, I've got no idea. I'm just making it up.
Still have to prove it.
Yeah, until it's proven, though, it's just an affirming the consequent, unless it has experimental validation.
It's not, unless you formulate it that way. I know what you're saying, and you are half right. Most of the time they formulate it into an affirming the consequent. You can put it forward as a suppositional statement without affirming the consequent. If acid, then boiling water, as a suppositional statement. I'm not affirming the consequent. I'm not saying we have boiling water, therefore it must have acid in it. That you've got to actually formulate it. That's why it's called formal. It's the form, if P then Q, Q therefore P. If you don't actually formulate it that way, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people who will also make an affirming the consequent without stating the latter part of the formal logical fallacy. They just ask you to do it for them.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They state the first part like it's a hypothesis, but they don't finish it.
Correct.
Can I
They
bring
claim
in
that
an
the whole
example
Molten
that
hole is
we
wrong.
go over and over each time, and I think it relates to this. So they say, meaning the ballers, that the Earth is rotating, 1,000 miles at the equator and different speeds towards the north and south pole of their model that doesn't have an R anymore. The challenge to that is that I'm sitting here looking out my window, and even if I go outside, I don't, through my senses, feel this rotation of the Earth. Secondly, there would be Earth-based Coriolis if the Earth was rotating, because if you go up in a helicopter, the Earth should turn underneath you, but it doesn't. So the fact that it cannot be proven, but it's stated as the religious belief that the Earth is rotating, this is exactly they say something, but they can't prove it, but then they make it the unscientific scientific so they can get on with their religion of the ball Earth.
Right, but we can take the same statement and turn it into modus tollens. If the Earth is a non-inertial spinning reference frame, we will observe Coriolis effect. We do not observe Coriolis effect, therefore Earth is not a non-inertial spinning reference frame.
Right, but that's proper.
Well, it's just logic. They just don't have it, so they have to turn it into logical fallacy, because we don't have a spinning Earth. And when you pull it apart, they argue with a begging the question fallacy for what won't happen, what we won't see, what would prove Earth spinning, i.e. Coriolis deviation from the ground. Well, they argue about the projectile and how it's conserving momentum, i.e. they veer off onto a different topic, conservation of angular or linear momentum, rather than talking about Coriolis deviation observed from a non-inertial spinning reference frame, because they can't prove it.
Well, my second part to that is I've been doing star trail photography almost every night when the sky's clear, and it's just beautiful images, right? But they're moving, but they say we're moving, that causes the star trails. And I say no. I say they're moving in a circuit, and they're repeated year after year to where they have their star guides for hundreds of years in advance, as well as from the past, repeating themselves. So they're dead right there, just using their own astronomy.
Sean Hawkins from the chat says, hurricanes are caused by Coriolis? No. They're not. If you want to join the panel, I'm more than happy to explain it. It's not a simple explanation, but the observation of Coriolis is of a not actual deflection. That's what Coriolis effect is. Not actual deflection. Well, Coriolis effect isn't going to cause anything ever. It's a not actual deflection. So is Coriolis causing a hurricane to spin? No. It's the observation of a not actual deflection. It's a pseudo force, a not actual force. So forcing hurricanes to spin? No. Sean Hawkins, you asked us a question, which is why I'm not going to give you an earful, because you put a question mark at the end. Good for you. You don't know. Fine. Let me be the first to tell you. No, hurricanes are not a result of Coriolis effect. Coriolis effect is not a force. So it can't whip hurricanes up. And if you're to claim that we're seeing a not actual deflection in the hurricane, that would imply the hurricane's moving straight and we're only seeing it appear to deviate. Whereas hurricanes have actual spin directions, Sean Hawkins. Now, I understand that this is obviously a cut above your intellectual pay grade, but no, hurricanes are definitely not caused by Coriolis, which is an observation of a not actual deflection. Hurricanes have an actual spin direction.
How
Moving
can
on.
observation do anything?
No, watching something seem to do something won't ever cause anything. If I'm watching a plane and I'm on a roundabout and I look up at the plane, and because I'm spinning underneath it on a roundabout, I go, wow, that plane looks like it's curving, because I'm looking at it from a spinning reference frame. Well, that looking like it's curving is a not actual deflection. Likewise, the claim that Earth is spinning under a pendulum. You swing the pendulum and it moves in one direction, forward and backward. That is what a pendulum does. However, it's claimed that it knocks the dominoes over because the Earth's rotating underneath. The pendulum's not actually moving to the side, Earth's rotating underneath. That's the claim. Not actual deflection. Earth rotating underneath, i.e. you on the roundabout rotating under the plane, looking at the plane seeming to curve. Well, I'm not causing the plane to move in a cyclonic action like a bloody hurricane. It just looks like it's curving because I'm spinning underneath. So it's me doing the spinning, not the plane. And if I'm spinning underneath something, seeing it not actually deviate, unlike a hurricane, my observation's not causing that hurricane. And if I was to observe it in wind, it would be an implication that the wind's travelling straight, I'm spinning underneath it, and it looks like it's taking a curved path. It's not actually taking a curved path. In the case of hurricanes, it is actually taking a curved path. Definitely not Coriolis deviation.
Another question, Nathan. How is something moving in a straight line experience? Now, experience means that thing moving in a straight line is actually, you can measure the centrifugal force. So how can something moving in a straight line experience centrifugal force?
It doesn't. The projectile has nothing to do with Coriolis deflection, because Coriolis Coriolis deflection is always observed from a spinning reference frame. So the projectile in your example has no force on it whatsoever. It's completely unaware that you might be watching it from a roundabout seeming to curve. And it doesn't need to in any way concern itself that I might happen to be underneath it, spinning underneath it, seeing it seem to curve. There's no force involved. Hello, QE.
Hello. How are you?
Very well. 32 minutes in, we're still not done with housekeeping, but that's always nice.
Hello.
One last thing, Nathan. One last thing. So even though you can mathematically describe that object experiencing centrifugal forces, it is not actually experiencing centrifugal forces, correct?
Correct. The projectile, which is in the inertial reference frame, has absolutely nothing to do with Coriolis effect. It's only the observation of what the projectile seems to be doing because you're rotating underneath it.
They validated it with a double-blind observation.
A double-blind experiment? We need
No, double
flat Earth math
Wait a
on the
minute.
case.
If it's blind, how do you see it? If it's blind, how do you see it?
Yeah, that's what I was getting
No,
at.
double blind. You've got a third party that's not even involved in the experiment. He just happens to be walking his dog past the roundabout, and he looks up, notices it, and then just doesn't mention it to you, and then that's the job's a good one. Triple blind.
No, it's even worse than that. He was a blind man who didn't see it.
There's a blind man on a roundabout being watched from a guy on a park bench, and both of them have got no vision. The guy on the park bench blindfolded, and the guy on the the path outside the park walking his dog, he's the actual arbiter of it, but he doesn't even know. He's triple blind.
Well,
Yeah, that's
that's
pretty
why
much
they
how the
have the
globe
term,
works.
the blind leading the blind.
But somebody calculated on the calculator and gave him the data, so there you go.
Well, that's maths. That's good as good as science, right? Make a graph. That's as good as science.
As long as you assume time is orthogonal, fuck, I can't even say it.
I don't think so. I would assume that time was the ultimate cause of it all.
Time causes everything, according to the ballers.
Yeah, time is the cause of all things. Will I give up smoking today? Only time will tell.
What a bunch of maroons. Now, I got a question. You know, I got a little something from the Jose JG Retard Show on our greatest subject of the week. Water vapor. Guess who else stepped in it?
We played the clip in the pre-show, so this is kind of spoiled if you're a member or you're watching this on the second channel. But yeah, we've already played it. But feel free, because this is obviously new to the audience listening live.
Sorry, man. I was sitting on it for a couple of days. You played it in pre-show. Play it again.
I will do once you finish the description and we've got through housekeeping. 35
Is it Sean?
minutes.
Sean?
Sean Hawkins, yeah.
I have 2 shows titled after that in the last 3 days. So
Just to let everyone know, thousands of people have listened to that.
yeah,
Because every time I do one of those, I have my Discord mailing list, and it goes to thousands of people as soon as I put it out. There, Sean. Oh, and it's a better one this time because they got the professor of physics, Professor Phil Belland. That's priceless, man. Yeah, all them guys, but I think they think, just stay with me for a second. I think not all of them, but the ones that were speaking, they think that when a water turns into a gas, it must have to break the hydroxyl bonds, the intramolecular bonds, or something. I don't know,
this
dude.
again. So they're not understanding the difference between inter and intramolecular bonds, right?
Yeah, the intermolecular bonds in water, just hydrogen bonds. When it breaks those bonds, certain situations become a gas. It doesn't break the hydroxyl bonds, the covalent bonds, and breaks it into oxygen and hydrogen.
How much energy is actually needed to do that? Because they do that in some modern power cells, right?
Yeah, serious energy, break that hydroxyl bond. It's a real strong bond.
Yeah, but it produces vast amounts of energy in the process, right?
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah.
Right, but that's not happening during evaporation. That's my point. Yeah, the H2O is still bonded when it evaporates. It's still water. It's water vapor. So it's still H2O. The intramolecular bonds haven't been severed. That would take... That's a completely different process. It's not evaporation.
yeah. So they assume it literally transforms into something else.
Well, they
So
assume
is it safe?
it liberates its hydrogen. That's what they're trying to...
Yeah. Well, maybe it's because that split up has for some reason been called water gas, which is kind of deceptive.
Yeah, it's very confusing if you think water's not a gas.
Is it safe to say the ballers miss?
The split up of water, hydrogen, oxygen, has been called water gas. But that is actually not the gaseous version of water. That's not water vapor, which is actually the gaseous form of water. So that's kind of confusing. Maybe that's where it's
confusing.
Coming from.
You just said it's not, and then you just said it is. You're double speaking, Arwin.
No, water gas. It's something. It's a chemical name.
Look, before you embarrass yourself, I'm going to play the clip.
Stop the Presses 2.0, May 24th, 2020. We have the intellectual elites over on Jose JG Retard Show doubling down on their thesis defense that evaporated water is not a gas.
Have you considered evaporation? According to Nathan Oakley and Quantum Racer, the current science is water evaporates and becomes gas.
I know. That's the dumbest statement I've ever heard, but yeah.
What do you call it, John?
I call it gaseous.
I'm sorry, I
state,
didn't know
not
that you were
gas.
joking.
So yeah, no, I'm not joking. They aren't joking. I am.
Globetard powers activate. So we have the statement, water evaporates and becomes a gas, which elicits laughing and mocking from the entire retard panel. An outburst of laughter from Latonia Bailey, again, the newest member to the retard family. Pathetic from the Rhodes Scholar Brian Leakey. And Sean the Crackhead Hawkins calls it gaseous, a gaseous state, not a gas. And finally, the coup de grace from Professor Latent Unnatural Homoerotic Obsession with tapping on the whiteboard, Phil Belland, who responds to the claim, water evaporates and becomes a gas with "that is the dumbest statement I think I ever heard." So let's have a look-see. From their alma mater wiki, water vapor or aqueous vapor is the gaseous phase of water. From the American Chemical Society, water vapor is the most important greenhouse gas. From NASA, water vapor is also the most important greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. From NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, many greenhouse gases occur naturally in the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, methane, and water vapor. From Science Direct, water vapor is the most important atmospheric trace gas. From Energy Education, University of Calgary, although invisible, water vapor is one component of the wet stream released. Water vapor exists in the atmosphere as an invisible gas. From Yale, Climate Connections, water vapor is one of the most important elements of the climate system, a greenhouse gas. In conclusion,
that's enough of that. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yeah.
They can't be that stupid.
So
Yeah, they are.
Quantum Eraser, are you saying the ballers missed it again?
Missed. Yeah.
So this is in response to it's a tangent of a housekeeping question. So any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No.
No, but ballers are not smarter than a fifth grader.
You can't be asking that question to ballers anymore. You have to take 25 steps back, right? You have to get into, okay, when water evaporates, does it become a gas? I've been asking all of them, right? They don't get to pass go. We have to go back to the beginning. Friggin' priceless.
Yeah,
keep it up, guys.
Beginning of schooling. I mean, I remember the phase changes being taught with water. You know, using 0 Celsius to explain the point where you have that particular phase change, or 100 degrees Celsius. But obviously at sea level. Anyway, that was what was used. It was water that was used to describe these changes to me in school. It's one of those very, very early memories of something that seemed scientific.
Didn't we talk about sublimation last week, where something can go straight from a solid to a gas, and
Yes.
water actually does that in a freezer? Doesn't it do that in the freezer?
Yeah, that's true. But we gave the comparison, something people might be more familiar with, even if it's just on movies, but dry ice.
Who was the moron that made the argument that he conceded the container, but then he tried to argue about the gradient within it?
I don't know. They all blur into one globe head now. Just shout out Al Junkies, best one to date so far. Oxygen loss makes ballers pseudo-smart. Hold on, you're ruining his gag. I'll say it again. Oxygen makes ballers pseudo-smart. Hashtag oxymorons.
Maybe the ballers are just trying to find a way to let off some steam.
Didn't Axl Rose used to use oxygen, like highly concentrated oxygen, when he was doing stage shows? Gets you high if you just have pure oxygen. So I understand. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
That's about as realistic as gas pressure without a container, right?
I think it's more farcical, if anything. It's the most farcical bit of the housekeeping. Any evidence that we've got a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? the backstories get even better. But in my opinion, it's the most farcical bit of the whole narrative.
I agree.
At least they've got a red herring defense to gas pressure without a container. What about the gradient? You know
Well,
what I mean?
don't they say something about sound waves or something that they bounce into the ground? Seismic waves. I'm sorry, seismic waves.
P
Yeah, but
waves
the
and S
problem is
waves.
that every time they do that, the result is so inconclusive they can't even agree on a model of what's really down there. That's the problem. They can't even uphold a real pretense of knowing what's down there based on actual data. That's kind of the problem. So they just don't talk about it too much.
Yeah, they get it wrong. P waves and S waves. They predict something and then it gets dug and it's something else. So, not very reliable.
Did you hear Planet Orleans Parish? Soundly's back.
Oh, joy.
The Spurs said, he said, geometric horizon, and the brain surgeon Soundly said, that's word soup.
What? Really?
Someone in the, I think it was
Maybe.
Neil in the pre-show said one of them was
Maybe
arguing.
he said that because he was slurring his mouth.
In the pre-show, Neil said that one of them had claimed, you'll like this, the apparent geometric horizon. Oxymoron. I like it.
Carnival tent, man. Carnival tent. Hey, I got a shameless plug.
For your show tonight.
Yeah.
We're done with
So
housekeeping. Go ahead.
yeah. See if I can do it correctly. So on the Quantum Eraser channel today, 1 p.m. U.S. Central, 8 p.m. UK, is Redshift and the Nebular Hypothesis. I'm gonna slaughter them. So be here or be sphere.
This
Go ahead.
episode 7. Yeah, it does. It covers Doppler. So if anybody's been hearing about Doppler shift in that particular category of arguments, then yeah, you're going to want to tune into that. So it's tonight. It's actually 7 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Central Standard, and that's on the Quantum Eraser channel. So be here or be sphere for Redshift and the Nebula Hypothesis slaughtered on Quantum Eraser.
It's going to be live or premiere?
It's a pre-record.
Premiere.
Oh, okay.
I'm on vacation.
Cool.
Just some pedigree. Just some
Finish the
pedigree
housekeeping
information
question.
with that. Hello?
I'll just do a quick note for your benefit. So, a guy in the chat called OALM, he also makes videos. Shout out to you for making videos, by the way, OALM, even though you're on the opposing side. Good for you. He actually got a quote-unquote scientist to talk to him about the DNA model. And he asked the guy what the independent variable was, and the guy stuttered a little bit. You know where this is going, right? Shifted uncomfortably in his chair, and then went on to describe making graphs, doing some mathematics, and how these variables interact with each other. So I went into I've quoted him, this scientist, in the guy's AOLM, or whatever you say his name. Went into his comments and was like, ooch, variables. Maybe look up the word independent. Better look next time.
Hey, can you put the link somewhere?
Yeah, I'll find it. I'll dig it out. I'll send it to you in Master B. But it was very
I know
amusing.
the cause of DNA. I know it. Time caused DNA.
Well, he started. He was asked that question. He's asked what the independent variable was, and he went on to describe hydrogen behavior.
Oh my god! When you say scientist, what is he?
I don't know. I can't remember.
All right. Hey, just some pedigree information with that. With Redshift, that is my oldest presentation. That was the first presentation I've ever done. 12 years ago.
Can we just get into it just quickly, just because this is coming up more and more with people talking about Redshift and talking about the Doppler effect, and it does bug me. And I remember Anthony cottoning onto this. Sleeping Warrior is actually in the chat at the minute, cottoning onto this, and he even called me about it and asked me quite specifically, how can this apply? I.e., how can if you know what Doppler effect is, if an ambulance drives past you and it's coming towards you, as it comes towards you, the wave is being compressed, the sound wave, the physical wave that travels through the air is getting shorter because it's coming towards you. When it passes you, the wave is getting longer as it gets further and further away. That's the Doppler effect. You can use it to measure speeds of things. It's very useful. It uses sound waves. Now, given that on this show we go into quite a lot of detail about light not being a wave, it poses the question, how is it applicable that you can have these Doppler-like shifts? And the answer is you can't. That's the bottom line.
I could have ended it right there, but I didn't. I went on another angle, but you're absolutely correct. That's how you destroy that argument right off the knees real quick. You got it.
All right. So the reflector situation that I pointed out like a few weeks ago, that's not the Doppler effect. You can't demonstrate the Doppler effect on Earth. It's only supposedly a presupposed celestial phenomenon. Is that correct?
No, Doppler effect is real.
For light.
No, not for light. For waves. For waves
right,
being compressed.
For sound.
For waves.
Right. Sound waves, yes.
All right.
I didn't see what you presented. I don't know what you're talking about.
He didn't present
So
anything.
there's no Doppler effect for light. Simple as that.
Light's not a wave. How can you have a wave being compressed as it speeds towards you and then get longer as it gets further away? How can that happen if it's not a wave? If you're talking about a probability distribution, how can a probability distribution... I can't even phrase this in a way that links the two together. I can't even do it.
Well, maybe it's something else. It's not really a wave or a particle. So maybe, but I was just asking, I wasn't even asking to the nature of light itself, which would kind of be involved in that. Rather, like there is no Doppler-like effect ever spotted on light on Earth where you can confirm it's actually on Earth.
I've got it. I've got the question. I've got the question for you. How do you squash a probability distribution?
You fold the sides of the detector in.
Hold on, I'm getting an answer. Hold on. QE, go on. Go on.
You fold the sides of the detector in.
You fold the sides of the detector in? What? I don't even understand what you mean.
I don't think that's what
sounds like a joke answer.
A joke answer. I shouldn't be. I'm looking for a nonsense answer, and I'm getting one.
Hold on.
I was actually genuinely trying to inquire as to the nature of what's going on with light, because light does seem to have a speed, empirically, measurably so.
Is that so?
Deducibly so. So, So yeah. If it has a speed, that it means that there is some kind of traveling going on, or whatever is actually, however you consider that. And then, well, motion should have some kind of effect on how that light then is absorbed if the speed is altered. And speed of light does have an influence, so they say.
Right, let me just piss all over that bonfire. Not only does light not have a speed, it doesn't even have a journey.
What? That doesn't make any sense.
That's too heavy.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's too heavy. Hold on, I'm getting told off.
Hold
on. What do you mean that's too heavy?
It's too. I just woke up just a little bit ago, man. You got to slow down a bit.
It's true though.
Yeah, it's incorrect.
It's not incorrect. How dare
yes,
you?
it is incorrect.
No, it isn't. Oh, okay. We'll look into it. You said you were into this light stuff. They know nothing about light. They know so little about light. It's untrue. We are but scratching the surface when we talk about the double slit or the delayed choice quantum eraser. I'm not being funny. Obviously, there's great minds gone into these experiments, and I'm not decrying them and what they have taught us, and it's monumental in some instances. However, we haven't even scratched the surface of light. Believe me, we don't know what it is. We don't know what it's doing. We haven't got a clue.
That's right.
You're correct.
You don't know its past. How do you measure its Doppler effect?
How do you measure what?
Well, The
If it has
Doppler
no
effect.
path, how do you measure its Doppler effect?
Doppler
You wait
effect.
till it evaporates.
You're talking about real Doppler effect with sound.
Yeah, that's where that comes from. And what I was basically asking, does Doppler effect also seem to at least apply to light? But there's no signs of that. There's only the claim apparently of redshift, but that's about celestial sightings.
Well, no, I guess you'd miss my point. If there's no path information, how do you measure a Doppler effect?
Exactly.
What?
There's no path. We're not dealing with diffracted light necessarily. We're just dealing with light.
Yeah, exactly. This is not about slits.
You're dealing with photons.
This is just about light moving.
Yeah, when we're talking about firing through things through slits, you're trying to achieve an interference pattern, diffraction. So you can get your probability distribution that gets called a wave, even though it's probability distribution, wave function. But the point is that that's only when you're getting this interference pattern that you can then go on to qualify in terms of wavelengths for light, in quotes. You couldn't see me doing my air quotes, I'm not on camera.
Wavelength? Oh, I love it. There's so much inherent confusion with the descriptions of how light's supposed to function and then what it technically is. The contradictions are just all filled up there, don't you think?
But if you understand what the maths is describing, a wave function is an accurate way of describing what a probability distribution is. That's not inaccurate. It might be confusing and has been used to confuse, but the actual vernacular is descriptively accurate. You're only trying to verbally or mathematically describe something when you're doing this. So in many ways, it's kind of arbitrary when the word wave function. Well, it's got an etymology. It does make sense, although it is confusing. You are right.
Yeah, it does make sense, but it gets extra confusing when you're talking about frequencies of wave functions. Because then you're taking it a step more literal when it's actually not literal. It then gets really weird.
Well, in audio terms, they used to call it something different. So modern audio guys call it frequency, whereas older audio guys will call it cycles. You've got your quarter wave and your half wave. They've got slightly different vernacular. I only know this because I've been recently studying acoustics. but as I understand it, the vernacular's changed from cycles to frequency. And when you describe it in terms of cycles, you can picture it in terms of its physical wave and what it's physically doing, because it is physical. But when you're describing probability distributions, it's not. It's a likelihood of something as opposed to something physically actualizing itself through the air and shortening or lengthening. So they're not even comparable.
Say it just appears like a wave, but that it doesn't actually mean it's a wave.
There's nothing about light that's wave-like in any way, shape or form at all. It's probability distribution when it's diffracted that's been hijacked to make light into a bloody wave, and it isn't.
Right, but there is the diffraction cascade unique to light, though. That is
you get the last word in, then I'm going to ask people to stay tuned if they're watching on the programming stream. Go ahead, Kiwi.
I didn't say anything, man.
Oh, whoever it was in Discord. It was Rumpsing Arwin.
The Doppler effect is from when you're in motion. The wavelength isn't actually changing. It's just the way you're perceiving that wavelength. So I don't think that would apply to a stationary Earth.
Well, no, the wavelength is changing.
It's getting with the motion
as the speeding ambulance goes past you, that wavelength that's reaching your ears is literally a longer wavelength.
Right. And Nathan, wouldn't you say that it's almost like a Coriolis effect?
Oh,
like
God, why didn't I leave that line?
Yeah, I know.
Right, with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in on live stream Nathan Oakley channel. But if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley channel, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
lovely day.